Hello and welcome to Lexitecture, a podcast about word origins and histories. My name is Ryan, and in each episode my friend Amy and I bring a new pair of words to share their stories with each other and you. You can find our past episodes and the occasional blog post on our website at lexitecture.com. Follow along with us on Twitter and Facebook at Lexitecture, and if you really like what we do, you can support the show at patreon.com/lexitecture. Today's episode, Majestical Toast.
Do you want to go first or will I go first? I went first last time.
All right, I'll go first.
Okay, cool.
So this word, I have to give credit where due. I had a chat with a gentleman by the name of Nick Capodice, who, along with his co-host Hannah McCarthy, it's a great name, and he and Hannah McCarthy run Civics 101, which is a New Hampshire Public Radio political education podcast.
Awesome.
Where they basically try to teach people how the U.S. political system and government and everything else actually works, which is a thing that most people don't know. That does
sound like that's a podcast at least. That's not a short conversation.
No, that's definitely a podcast. So this is one of those things where I wish there was one of these. Maybe there is one for Canada. If you know of one for Canada, please let me know, because it's needed. We're having it's election day today in Canada. And so in addition to all the hand-wringing about various terrible people running or whatever, there's also just the fact that most people don't actually know how the system works in Canada. There's a lot of misinformation. So Nick and Hannah are doing good work, and I need to find a Canadian Nick and Hannah to listen to and recommend to my friends and family. But cool. Nick and Hannah are also, as is the way with most awesome people, huge word nerds. So they were really excited about us and what we're doing. So shout out to them. And Nick just said, you do a show about words. Have you done the word toast? And I said, no, I have not done the word toast. And I haven't even
I like Nick already.
Yeah, right? He's good people. And so he suggested the word toast. And so I looked that up. So this is dedicated to Nick Capodice of New Hampshire Public Radio, Civics 101, and also to Hannah. So hi, Hannah and Nick. Onwards. So toast. Toast began as a verb in the late 1300s. And so the OED gives the first definition as, quote, to burn as the sun does, to parch, to heat thoroughly. And
that's such a beautiful definition.
It is. And it's even better because the first citation is a nice roasted and toasted ham is the first line, which is just delicious sounding in general. So that's the first definition as a verb. And then by 1440, there's a citation which is closer to the current definition, which is to brown by exposure to heat, fire, etc. And it specifically says to brown cheese or bread. In the 1700s, it becomes a little more refined because it's specifically a piece of bread eaten for the same general purpose as we eat it now. Like it became solidified in the modern definition in the 1700s. But it was by 1440, it was written down as being to brown by exposure to heat or fire or whatever. And so, diving into the etymology itself, Etym Online has it go from, it goes before English to Old French toaster, to toast, grill, toast, roast, or burn in the 12th century. From the vulgar Latin tostare, which is the source of Italian tostare and Spanish tostar.
All of these words sound delicious.
They do. This makes me hungry. I haven't had breakfast yet either, which is a problem. So, frequentive of Latin torrere, whose past participle is tostus, which means to parch.
Oh, nice.
And so it comes from a Pi root, ters, T-E-R-S, which means to dry. Now, this part is fun. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it for you. You're going to love this. It is...
Sugarcoat it? What's even better than a great thing? A great thing with sugar on it.
I'm not going to downplay it is what I probably should have said.
I'm so excited. Bring it on.
You're in for this. So this one's going to be your jam. which is why it
Raspberry.
works for toast. Get it? You see what I did there?
I do
Okay.
see what you did there. And raspberry jam on toast is one of the greatest delights of the world. So I am super
It is.
excited.
I'm a strawberry jam guy myself, but honestly, seriously, if it wasn't the social conventions against just eating jam and condiments with a spoon, I probably would just do that. But I do appreciate that toast exists as something that I can put strawberry or blueberry jam onto. But anyway,
Go.
you can tell I'm hungry.
Yeah, for sure.
So the pie root gives us, for starters, all the words that come from the Latin word terre for earth.
Oh,
So
nice.
terrain, subterranean, Mediterranean, territory, terrestrial, all those things.
Cool. The parched
Which
earth.
makes sense because, exactly, the dry bits as opposed to the wet bits.
That's... Wow. Keep going. More.
Right?
I demand
Okay,
more.
So terrestrial, Mediterranean, all that stuff, just dry from terre, so earth. It also gives us metatarsals.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So metatarsals, and I'm going to... You explain to the good people what the metatarsals are.
Okay.
This is your whole thing.
This is kind of my whole thing. Well, right now I am super duper interested in the anatomy of the foot. So this is very, very
Beautiful.
exciting. The easiest way to think about where the metatarsals are is to start with your toes and to curl your toes, right? And you can curl your toes into two sections, and those two sections are phalanges, which in itself is a pretty wonderful word.
It is a great word.
Phalanges. So the phalanges, which interestingly are indistinguishable finger and toe phalanges, unless you're a highly skilled anthropologist, it's very, very difficult to tell the difference between toe bones and finger bones.
Really?
Yeah. So the phalanges attach to the metatarsals. The metatarsals are
Right, okay.
meta as in, middle of, outside of. They are outside of the tarsals. The tarsals are the bones of the foot themselves. The bones of the foot have beautiful names, absolutely gorgeous. So we have, now that I'm on the spot, I doubt I'll remember them all. We have the hamate, the pisiform, the triquetrum, trapezoid, trapezium, scaphoid. Is the scaphoid in the foot or the hand? I think the scaphoid is in the... Oh, no, hang on.
I am not
Pisiform is in the
useful
hand.
in this.
No. I've gotten completely mixed up between carpals and tarsals, which I often do. The carpals are the bones in the hand and the tarsals are the bones in the wrist. In the foot... sorry, I said hand and wrist. I meant hand and foot. In the foot, you have the navicular bone.
Ooh.
Because it's kind of boat-shaped.
Right,
You
okay.
have 3 cuneiforms, C-shapes,
Nice.
and you have the other one.
The other one. Nice. Fantastic. Yes, so the middle bones of the foot. And so...
Listen, I sat in an exam in anatomy 3 days ago, and I'm still recovering from that. So
I know.
bits of it has leaked into my head in the staying there place, and bits of it just leaked right out my ear as soon as I left the room.
I was slightly worried that this would be sort of a PTSD triggering thing for you, it's me bringing up metatarsals right after your massive exam, but I thought it'd be fun enough that you'd be okay with it.
So tell me why the tarsals are dry.
Right? So, also, for anyone out there who is going along with Amy where you curl up your toes, yes, I realize she should have said, make fists with your toes so that we could have had a Die Hard reference in this podcast.
I'm so sorry.
But I'm here for you. I feel that we got you. Make fists with your toes, and that's how you figure out where the metatarsals are.
If you
It all
don't mind
comes
his
back to
fists
Die Hard.
with your toes. Fists with your toes.
Fists with your toes. Now,
Got it.
so metatarsals. So the name comes from meta, which can mean outside, but in this case, it was sort of or at least according to Adam Online, it comes from the form meaning between or next after.
That makes sense.
And the tarsus. And so the tarsus originally were the ankle and foot bones collectively.
Right.
And so from the Greek tarsos, meaning ankle, sole of the foot, or rim of the eyelid for some reason, which is slightly weird.
Awesome.
And originally flat surface, especially for drying. And so it
Oh my God.
resembled some sort of implement or apparatus that they used to dry things out, presumably in the sun, because that's where it would have happened. And that's where the tarsus comes from. And because the metatarsus are beside the tarsus, they are meta to the tarsus.
Oh, that's
where that
amazing.
relates.
There are 7 tarsal bones. They are named the calcaneus, which is the heel bone, the talus, which is frickin' cool, and between the heel bone and the bones of the leg, the cuboid, the navicular, and the medial, middle, and lateral cuneiforms. I
Nice.
feel like I had to set that straight for my own peace of mind.
Perfect.
Wow.
And it's interesting as you
The
can see
bones that are like the drying out in the sun place.
Yeah.
Wow.
Including the
That's
bone
awesome.
that's like a sea, the bone that's like a boat, the bone, like those are very cool. Anyway, I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, that is very cool.
It also, we're still on this pie route to dry, gives us the word torrent, which I thought extremely weird because
That's
a torrent
not a dry
is
word.
the opposite of dry. It is a lot of fast-moving water. But what this says is, the explanation in Edom Online is that this weirdness is that the Latin comes from torrentem, which originally was an adjective meaning roaring, boiling, burning, parching, hot, or inflamed.
Oh my god, that's super cool.
And so it's not the wetness of the water that gives it torrent. It's the rushing and roiling and boiling and seething fierceness of it that makes it a torrent. And
You're
originally
right. I love this.
Right? And originally one of the applications of that was in a roaring boil, like a furnace, like a hot, inflamed, burning place. And so that's why to dry gives us the word torrent and torrential. So torrential rain is rain that is raining so hard it's like a thing that dries everything out real fast, which is really
Oh my
weird.
god. I'm just going to have to revert to making excited noises. I think the words have failed me. I'm just going to be groaning if you need me.
Fair enough. So, yeah, so I thought that was super cool. Anyway, back to toast. But that was an awesome thing, and I knew you'd enjoy that a lot.
So amazing. Yes.
As a noun, toast shows up in the OED, weirdly enough, in 1430. So 10 years before the verb gets the to brown bread by heating meaning. Which part of this shows what we're always banging on about, where you say, like, just because it's in the dictionary doesn't mean it didn't exist before then. These words clearly were around before then, bubbling together, and then they became written down someplace where someone, and more importantly, that the writing had to survive long enough for someone to read it and put it in the dictionary.
Yeah, sure.
Is the other thing, because so much stuff has just been written down and then lost instantly.
Don't speak about it. It upsets me that
See,
that is
for
the
example,
case.
a lot of my, bills or important notes to remember things with.
Your diploma.
And my various degrees, which I invested lots of money and years of my life into. I have no idea where they are. Yeah, like that. Ancient
Just like
lost
that.
sources are like my English degree. Lost to the ages.
Or maybe in a cupboard somewhere.
And discoverable only by analogy to what I sort of know now.
See,
They're like the pie. They can be theorized based on my current knowledge, but not actually proven.
I like to pretend that there's that there is a library of Alexandria out there that we just haven't discovered yet, and it really upsets me to think that books burned.
Yeah.
In fact, let's face it, scrolls and papyri burned. That whole thing just makes me feel deeply unhappy. The notion that, I mean, I remember when I went to the British Library, to the Treasures exhibition in the British Library, and I intended to have a quick scoot around, and I was there for nearly 4 hours. And one of the things that most struck me, I went all around, and then I realised what time it was, and that I had a train to catch, and I had time to go and look at one thing again.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I chose to go back and look at again was Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Oh,
And there were various reasons for this. One, it's an incredibly beautiful manuscript. It's beautifully illuminated, and it's very attractive. Two, I have fond memories of studying it at university and learning how much I loved Old English. And three, it's the only extant copy of the poem.
Oh, wow.
So that's exciting.
That's very
And
exciting.
what makes it even more exciting is it was almost destroyed in a fire in something like 1300. I forget the exact date of the fire, but it's the only one we have, and it was
Wow.
almost burned. That
gone.
raises the hairs on the back of my neck. You know,
Yeah.
that's a real. So there can be few things more exciting to me than the thought that there are still words out there that we haven't discovered yet.
Yeah.
Words that were being used, that were being thrown around like they were nothing hundreds and hundreds of years ago. They're there somewhere in a cupboard, in an archive, in a chest, wherever it is, just being magical
Yeah.
without anyone really being aware of them yet.
It's fantastic. And these
Anyway, tell me more
coincidences
about toast.
These coincidences about things that sources that survive. You may be familiar with this peripherally. I know you are not a church person now, but you've spent time peripheral to churches. There was in one of the epistles, and my theology professors are going to be angry at me, or at least slightly disappointed, but in one of the epistles, St. Paul makes reference to a play, to a Greek play. And oddly enough, it's one of the ones that survived, because most Greek drama
Oh, that's
is
amazing.
long gone. But the one that he happens to reference in one of the Pauline epistles is one that we have. I don't remember which one it is now. Someone out there probably does. But
That's super cool. I'm going to look that up as soon as I
yeah,
can.
that just kind of, when I first heard about that years ago, I was like, wow, that's a crazy, insane coincidence, because
Yeah.
the vast majority of stuff just doesn't exist anymore. So it's, again, similar things, like where you hear how many things in the older manuscripts we have are oblique or even overt references to some sort of piece of culture that we just don't have. So it's like, oh, that's a weird thing to say. But then it was like, he was basically quoting the 12th century Simpsons. It's just all the scripts are gone, so we can't. Anyway, it's kind of cool to think of stuff like this, I think.
I mean, climate change really, really, really troubles me. But if I was a scientist and it was a choice between potentially fixing climate change and creating a better world for everybody, or literary time travel, I know where I'd be spending my time.
Right? Yeah.
It's maybe not cool to say that, but it's true.
Yeah.
Full
Sometimes we
disclosure.
just have to be honest with ourselves. We all make our compromises in life. Don't judge Amy.
Toast.
So toast. So as a noun, in 1430, the original OED definition of it is slightly odd. So it says, a slice or piece of bread browned in the fire, often put in wine, water, or other beverage. And so this is, I suspect, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this is one of the, if not the origin point for why we also call drinking to someone's health a toast. So you offer a toast at a wedding or some other celebration, you toast to someone's health. And so
it did not even occur to me that sense of the word existed, because I was so busy dreaming of brown buttered hot bread.
right? So
That's so cool.
it didn't actually mean the noun a toast as in to offer a toast.
Sure.
Doesn't show up till 1700.
Oh, okay. That's quite a long time.
And so, and again, this is one of those, this whole thing is the perfect example of how dating word origins is very difficult, because we can only do it by written sources. So in 1709, there was a reference that says that it dates back to the reign of Charles II, which I didn't bother looking up the time period of, but it was obviously much earlier than that. So it's like it's very self-aware that this is an older word than has been written down, but it doesn't get written down until 1700. A couple centuries after it was used as a noun to talk about the piece of bread that was dipped into the wine or water or other beverage. And so it says, Etymonline says, the custom of toasting someone apparently had its origin in the use of spiced toast to flavor drink. And it was originally referring to the beautiful or popular woman whose health is proposed and drunk. So that 1700 reference, like when you say someone is the toast of the town.
Yeah.
And so that was
That's
the
hard.
1700 thing and normally it was apparently a beautiful and popular woman. And so the toast was the person to whose health you are drinking.
That's so cool.
And then it comes according to Adam Online, from the custom of doing that, making toast with some sort of spices or whatever possibly, and using that to flavor a drink differently, and then using that drink for the ceremonial, here's to you, and, and yours
Wow.
and your loved ones.
I was wondering when you said about putting toast into a drink, I wondered if it was that very Korean custom of if you are drinking booze, then you must be eating something, and if it was if there was any sense of that.
I don't know if
But
there's
if
related
you're-
to that, but it.
Yeah, if you're putting the toast in to flavour the drink, I was assuming it would happen the other way around. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I was thinking, toast is not a greatly flavoured thing. It's
No.
a medium onto which you put other delicious things. So I would presume if you put it in wine, then it soaks the wine up pretty well. But yeah, it's interesting that the spices were put on the toast to get them into the wine.
Yeah, I'd love to somehow find more about that. Apparently, the OED citation definition for that noun form says that it's obsolete now everywhere except India, which
Okay.
seems to mean it's an Indian tradition of some sort. I don't know, but it would be interesting to find that out. Incidentally, my favorite toast, as in the words that we use to drink to someone's health, is I saw it on the side of an enamel teapot. And I actually bought it for my sister for her birthday one year. And it's simply, here's to the health of your enemy's enemies. And I love
I like
it.
that a lot.
Yeah.
I do not personally have the energy to fuck you up, but someone out there does. God bless them.
And here's to them. Yeah, exactly. So
Big hand for those guys.
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's so understatedly British, it's not. I'm not being aggressive. I'm toasting to someone's health. It just happens to be the health of, and to you it's beneficial. It's to your enemies. It's those enemies, and it's awesome. It's multi-layered.
There are a lot of really
it
good.
involves tea.
There are a lot of great Scottish toasts.
It's perfect. Oh, I bet.
Yeah, some hae meat and canna eat, and some hae meat but canna eat,
Oh, I'm so.
and some they wine to drink it. We hae meat and we can eat, so to the Lord be thank it. Something along those
Oh,
lines.
nice.
Yeah, there are lots of really cool ones. May the road rise up to greet you and things like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. Another perfect example of things I can't remember when I try to remember them.
Yeah, it's the tell us a joke phenomenon. It's
Yeah.
got to be a name for that.
There
Where you
has
know lots
to
of
be a name
jokes
for
until
that.
someone says tell us a joke. Now, finally, I'm going to wrap up. The word is another example in another way of the difficulties of aging words and just the inherent flaw in using a dictionary as a prescriptive thing in general. So there's a modern use of toast which dates back to the 1980s. And that is like if you say, oh, great, now you're toast, or now we're toast, like we're done, we're
Okay.
finished, we're in a lot of trouble, that idea. And so that dates from 1983. And the citation in 1983, now I should say that it doesn't get into the OED until the 2002 edition, which is one of those. Originally I was like, yeah, see, it took 20 years for this to get in. Now I know it's a bit different because it's a dictionary keeping up with ongoing changes in language, but the idea is the same. The word was around long before it actually made it into the dictionary. So stop being so picky about words having to be in the dictionary in order to be words. There we go. Soapbox moment over. And now on to the good stuff. Because toast, meaning dead, over with, in serious trouble, etc., comes from Ghostbusters.
No.
It does. And so, and this is the thing that Nick tipped me off to originally, which is why I was obviously always going to look this up. It comes from Ghostbusters. And so in the citation itself says that it's a line in the third draft of the film's script. And so the credits for it are Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, who wrote Ghostbusters.
God bless their cotton socks.
Absolutely. But there is a note in it attached to it. There's like an asterisk beside it. Because that line as written, spoken by Peter Venkman, does not actually show up in the movie.
Ah, okay.
Now, so much of this movie was just ad-libbed because it's for
That's the way those guys work.
amazing
Yeah.
comic legends working together, and so that's just gonna happen. And so much of it was ad-libbed. So the line in the movie is Bill Murray as Dr. Peter Venkman saying, "This chick is toast." That's the line in the movie.
Okay.
It's not in the script, so it doesn't exist in written form, technically speaking. So Bill Murray is not credited with a word origin in the OED as a citation because you can't cite a verbal thing, but because through the magic of technology, we know that he ad-libbed the line, and that actually is the first recorded use of the word and the thing that made it most popular. And so the upshot of all of this is that this form of the word toast made it into the OED in 2002, and B, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Bill Murray are all in the OED specifically named as the origin of a word meaning.
When you started to talk about this incredible, unbelievable, brilliant word, I started to wonder how much of this did Nick know? Like, did Nick just say to you, have you talked about the word toast because toast is awesome and it's great? Or did he have, a bit of insider knowledge? Had he looked it up himself? And this is better than anything I could possibly have hoped for, quite frankly.
Is. So when Nick told me about toast, he said, have you looked up the word toast? I said, no, I haven't. He said, you have to, because Bill Murray is in the OED. And that's all. That's basically all he said. I was like, that's Bill enough Murray for me. That's
in the OED.
And so, yeah, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis are all the origin of that modern usage of toast.
Wowzers. Bill Murray was recently in a car accident in St Andrews. So St Andrews, home of golf, St Andrews, which is only about 15 miles away from Dundee, maybe not even as far as that. And he wasn't driving the car, he was being driven, and there was a collision between his car and another. And it got in the local news because A, he's a famous guy, and
right.
B, he did something slightly out of the ordinary. And my response to this story was, I can't imagine the unbelievable shift of emotions you would experience at first having some jackass run into your car, getting out to talk to said jackass and realising that it was Bill Murray. Like,
yeah,
there are few bad to good turnarounds like that.
Oh yeah, no, you'd like.
I would be actively delighted if Bill Murray hit my car.
Yeah, I would. Yes.
Yeah.
I would. I don't know what I would do. But you're absolutely right. I would get out. I would get out of the car, extremely irritated, and I would arrive at the other car, offering that he could just hit my car again if he wanted to.
Yeah, that's essentially how I would react to that situation.
It's like I'm not even gonna call. I will pay to fix your car. Can I shake your hand?
That was before I knew he was in the OED.
Right? He made a word.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. So toast. There's more to it than you think. So enjoy it for breakfast toast. Because, boy, wild ride.
Wowzers. Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much. I would never have found out all of these incredible things, including that Bill Murray and Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd are in the OED.
It's so good.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, we seem to have a slightly strange synchronicity going on, Ryan, because I am about to start with a quote from a film.
Oh, that's fantastic. I like it.
And you've just finished with one. And, as you will know, dear listeners, we're not scripted. Yeah. If you weren't sure if we were scripted or not, let me just confirm for you that we're not scripted. And we don't know what the other person is going to talk about until we rock up to record. So yeah, this is quite a nice little happenstance. There's a word that's probably not in the dictionary. I don't know. Anyway, so the word that I'm going to talk about today is majestical. You heard me correctly. Majestical. And the film that I'm quoting is the entirely lovely Hunt for the Wilder People.
Oh, it was so good.
And if you've never gotten Taika Waititi's Hunt for the Wilder People in your life, if that's not happened yet, I envy you, because I would love to watch it for the first time again.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just here's what I usually say to people to underscore just how heartwarming, feel good, and lovely this film is. I watched it after I got home after my father's funeral. I was like, that was not a good day. It was really, really not a good day. And we were in that sort of slightly bizarre, okay, all the organising stuff is finished now. Okay, we've gone home. What do we want to do? And my husband said, what do you want to do? Do you want to just go to bed? Will we watch something? And I was like, let's just watch something, just something a little bit different. And this was what we chose. And I was even really, really happy on what was a pretty terrible day in my life.
Yeah.
Having watched this film. So this exchange happens between the two main characters, Heck, played by the wonderful Sam Neill, and Ricky Baker, who's, I've forgotten Ricky Baker's, the actor who plays it. He's called Julian something. He's probably best known these days for being in Deadpool 2. And he's the kid that Deadpool is trying to save from his own future.
Yeah.
So Heck says, pretty majestical, eh? Ricky Baker says, I don't think that's a word. Heck says, majestical? Sure it is. Ricky Baker says, nah, it's not real. Heck says, what would you know? Ricky Baker says, it's majestic. To which Heck replies, that doesn't sound very special. Majestical's way better. And I think we can all agree with Heck that Majestical is, it's just fundamentally nicer than Majestic. Yeah. And so, I started off with Majestic, and then when I did a little bit of digging, discovered that, I love the word majestical. I use it specifically anytime I drive from Dundee to Edinburgh.
Okay.
There's a point where, so they opened a new bridge across the Firth of Forth, which you have to cross to get from the Kingdom of Fife into the Lothians, which is where Edinburgh is. And there are now 3 bridges there. There's a rail bridge, there was a suspension road bridge, and they had to replace the road bridge because it was getting old.
I just have to stop you right there for a second. Every single word of that sounded like it came out of some sort of fantasy novel.
Oh, okay.
Like
That's where I live.
To the Lothians, to the Firth of Forth, I know what those words mean because I was there a couple years ago with you. But it's just you live in Middle Earth. I know it's New Zealand. I get that this movie is set in New Zealand, so it works. But I just want you need to appreciate how awesome the place you live is.
I do appreciate it.
Super.
It's pretty damn awesome.
And I know now we're talking about infrastructure and transportation, so it's back to the reality. But still, I just needed to say that.
So the replacement bridge is called the Queen's Ferry Crossing.
Okay.
And it has 3 masts, if you will. And then the struts of the bridge that hold it in place, they're like the drawings that you used to do in maths classes where you make a curve out of straight lines.
Right.
You know the kind of thing I mean?
I think so, yeah.
So it kind of looks like this. Basically, there are 3 mast-like structures that have cables regularly attached to the mast all the way up. And there's a particular, you come around the bend when you're on the road towards the bridge, come around the bend, and between 2 hills, the water opens up and you see the bridge for the first time. And I always say it looks like 3 majestical sailboats.
It really does. I'm just looking at pictures of it right now. It really does.
It's gorgeous. It's really lovely. So the bridge is majestical. So I always say that particular word because it's for me it feels like majestic's good, but it's even better than that, which I think is the point that Heck was making.
Yeah.
Heck's describing the great outdoors. It's very much, almost as much as Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings. It's a film about how beautiful New Zealand is as a country, particularly the countryside, the parts that are not cities. If you That seemed like a really complicated definition for someone that's quite simple. Welcome to my life. So the reason that majestical popped into my head as a word that I might research for the podcast was that the aforementioned anatomy exam was looming, and I was revising the adductors. The adductor muscles are, loosely speaking, they're at the inner thigh. And they're the muscles that allow you to bring your leg closer to your body. So if you squeeze your legs towards each other, squeeze your knees together, you're using your adductors.
Okay.
And there are 5 adductors. And they are another little anatomy spot. I'm just going to show off my knowledge here. There's a brilliant acronym to remember the 5 adductors. Please, baby, love my groin. And the adductors form what people refer to as the groin, the side, the inner thighs. So please, baby, love my groin. So they're pectineus, adductor brevis, adductor longus, adductor magnus, and gracilis. And it was while looking at adductor magnus, I was thinking firstly, what a very pleasing set of letters that is. I think it's the GN. It's really fun to say, Magnus.
Yeah.
And, I'm well aware it's a fairly common etymological root that has lent itself and been the precursor of so many different words. Anything that has that MAGN has something to do with greatness. And it's interesting because I must have learned it that way the first time I learned it. For me, Magnus means great. And here, of course, I mean great in the sense of large. Now, it's interesting because when I started to research this word, it occurred to me that that's not usually what I mean when I say the word great. But at the same time, I'm very much aware of great as a word that means a large size because I would use it. That's what would click on in terms of my understanding anytime something had that magn or magnus root to it.
Right.
So I had a little bit of a look at this sense too, at the sense of greatness. And this is an old word beyond old words. It's cited. Its first citation in the OED is an early Old English citation. Now, I checked this again. I know I've looked it up before because I had to look it up again because I couldn't remember the numbers. But when a word is cited in the OED and it is given the tag either early Old English, or Middle English, they took the decision to standardise those citations by saying, here are the dates that we mean. So when a word is cited as being from early Old English, it is from somewhere in between the years 600 to 950.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So
old.
Things have been great for a very, very long time, but they were great in terms of their size.
Right.
And that was the case for quite a few centuries. The sense of great as an intensifier, as a mark of quality, someone who was good at a thing, didn't come around until around about 1300.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which is also where the word majesty is first cited, around about 1300. And majesty is, of course, the root form from which we get both majestical and majestic.
Yeah.
So other than Ricky Baker and the beautiful sails of the Queensferry Crossing, why did I choose majestical for my word this time rather than majestic?
Okay. Well,
quite simply, because it's older. Majestical came first.
Sorry. Really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So again, we could quibble about this for exactly the reasons that you've just been talking about as you discussed toast.
Yeah.
But the first written citation in the OED for majestical is from 1578. The first written citation for majestic is from 1606.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So
I love
because, in the words of Buddy the Elf, it's fun to say. And because I love the film and I use it to describe the bridge that's so very beautiful, I thought, well, I'm not going to go for that standard, don't you mean majestic? While it is an obsolete form, majestical is right there in the OED. So if you want to be that picky person who says it's got to be in the dictionary in order for it to be a word, I thought, well, I'll take you at your word. I'll go from there.
Yeah.
So, majestic, coming from majesty, is the etymology given in the OED is the noun majesty plus the suffix ic. So we've got 2 parts to think about here. Okay.
Okay.
So firstly, majesty greatness or grandeur of exalted rank or character, imposing loftiness, stateliness, qualities appropriate to rulership. This is from Etim Online, and they have it as Mageste. From
Okay.
Old French majesté, grandeur or nobility, from about the 12th century. From Latin majestatem, greatness, dignity, elevation, honour or excellent. So
Nice.
is Adductor Magnus related to Majesty? Yes, it is. Very,
Sweet.
very much so. It is directly related via its etymology. And so we get from major, the comparative of Magnus, great, large, big of size, abundant of quantity, great or considerable of value, strong or powerful of force, also of people, elderly or aged, and figuratively great or important or grand. It comes from a Pi root, not only a Pi root meaning great, but also a fairly terrible but worth a watch Jason Statham film, Meg. MEG. Have you seen that film?
I haven't, but I feel like that's most of Jason Statham's films could use that as the tagline.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty dire, but you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Yeah, when we watched it, Ross had been out somewhere and had been drinking, and he kept falling asleep because he was a little bit well on.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, "You've missed a bit," and he would say, "Has this happened?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what happened." And I didn't even bother to say, "How did you know?" He knew.
Right, okay. Fair enough. Good
So,
stuff.
the Proto-Indo-European root meaning great, again, great in that sense of size,
Right.
but also, as with Majesty, lending itself to that sense of dignity and greatness, greatness in terms of your quality. It forms all or part of acromegaly, Almagest, Charlemagne. I didn't realise until I researched this that Charlemagne just means Carl the Great.
Oh.
Great Carl.
Of course. Wow. I didn't notice that either.
It seems very obvious, but it had not occurred to me. It also gives us maestro, magisterial, magistral, magistrate, magna carta, magnate, magnitude, magnum, magnanimity, magnanimous, magni, just as a prefix, magnificat, magnificence. So all of these MAGN words that use that root. It also gives us Maharaja, Maharishi, Mahatma, as in Gandhi, wasn't his name, it was an honorific. Mahayana, Maya, Majesty, Major, Majordomo, Majority, Majuscule, Master, Maxim, Maximum, May, as in to take part in May Day festivities. Also the month of May, it gives us Mayor, Mega, Megalo, Mickle, Mr, Mistral, Mistress, Much, and Omega.
Wow.
Yeah, that one was interesting to me. The Alpha and the Omega. Presumably the last one, so the greatest one. I don't know if you're counting them up. Then
yeah, maybe
it might be the greatest. But one of the words that I was most excited to see on this list was the word mickle. That's Mickle.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I don't get it. Tell me about mickle.
Mickle it's a word that's used in Scots, and interestingly, it's a word that's often misused in Scots.
Okay.
So the OED says that mickle, the adjective and the adverb, is it's inherited from Germanic, cognate with Middle Dutch mekel, and it means, this is chiefly Scots and English regional, and it means great, quite simply, or in various applications, much. Great in size or large in size, bulk or stature. Basically, something that is mickle is big. The more common usage of it in Scots, I should say the more correct usage of it in Scots is the word muckle. You might say it's a muckle great stone. It's a really, really large stone. But where that gets interesting, there is a saying, a Scots saying, that was apparently, it was referred to by George Washington in 1793, which, kind of gave it a little bit of exposure because people listened to what George Washington had to say.
Right.
And the phrase is, money a mickle makes a muckle.
Huh.
I'll give you a minute just to land in Middle Earth again.
Absolutely.
And
That's fantastic.
so usually money a mickle makes a muckle is translated as, or it's said to mean money, many, a small thing makes a big thing.
Okay.
You know, as in look after the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves. That kind of thing.
Right. Okay.
Money a mickle makes a muckle. However, mickle means big and muckle means big.
Yeah.
So while the phrase is understood to mean many a small thing makes a big thing, it actually said many a big thing makes a big thing.
Come to our store for our buy one, get one offer because you bought one and you'll get one.
Yeah, that it kind of comes across like that. So it's an article in the Scotsman that points this out, and the Scotsman also linked to another. The Scotsman had at one point a Scottish Word of the Week
Nice.
feature in their paper, and they point out that the word is in fact that should be correctly used in the phrase is pickle. So if you are English and you're talking about pickle,
Okay.
you may either be talking about a vegetable that's been stored in, preserved in vinegar.
Yeah.
You might also be talking about being in a spot of bother.
Right. I made a pickle.
He's in a real pickle. But in Scotland, a pickle, or again a puckle, so the same with mickle and muckle, either phrase is used depending on whereabouts you are in Scotland, means a little bit. So you would say a pickle sugar in your tea. These are examples from the Scotsman article. A pickle salt on your chips.
Wow.
The word puckle, I'm more used to that, and in fact, again, a slightly different verb, a slightly different vowel sound. A pockle is like a little bag of, or a like you talk about a pockle of sweets, like a little paper bag with sweets in them. But I didn't realise that the etymology of this came from this sense of a small amount. I thought that a pockle was a packet, but in fact it's just a wee drop, if you like, a small thing.
Wow.
So mickle and muckle, meaning variously big, or if you like, big.
In case you need to change it up a little.
Yeah. Mickle and muckle are actually much, much, much earlier than majestic, or majestical. The OED has them. Again, we're talking about early Old English, mickle. And I'm not going to read you the citation because it's good fun, but I've no idea what sort of a sense I would be making of it, and I'm not really sure what the words mean. So I can't make much out of either context or assume pronunciation. It does contain the word imbeciled, which is spelled YMBSEALD. And I did go on a little bit of a rabbit hole because I wondered if it was related to our word imbecile.
Yeah.
It would seem not.
Oh.
It's an Old English word that means to be surrounded by something or other. So our majest, comes from all of the places that all of these words come from, major and Magnus and muckle. So I pointed out that we had the two parts to the word. We had, or two parts to majestic. We had that majest part, and we had the IC. And interestingly, this exists as a suffix with its own separate entry on Etym Online. This is cool. Listen to this.
Okay.
Middle English, ick, IK, or ICK, word-forming element-making adjectives, having to do with having the nature of, being, made of, caused by, or similar to. From French, IQUE, and directly from Latin, ICUS, or from cognate Greek, ikos, which means in the manner of, or pertaining to.
Right. Okay.
It is from the pi adjective suffix iko, or ko, which also yielded Slavic isku, adjectival suffix indicating origin, the source of the ske part of Russian words.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, nice, isn't it? So the ske in many surnames is about, the person who originates from this place.
Yeah.
It's also in chemistry specifically used to indicate a compound that has a higher valence than names which end in OUS. So we have it first used in benzoic in 1791.
Okay.
So not benzus, but benzois.
Right.
In Middle English, and often spelled ICK-IKE or IQUE, various forms in ICK, like critic and ethic, were common in early modern English and survived in English dictionaries into the early 19th century. This spelling was supported by Johnson, but opposed by Webster, who prevailed. I do like to think of Johnson and Webster shaking their etymological fists at each other. One really wanted that K, but Webster was the man who won that particular battle.
Yeah.
So that gives us majestic. Majestical also has its own etymological entry. Compound adjectival word formal element, and it does say that it's usually interchangeable with IC, although sometimes there's a specialised sense denoted by the ICAL suffix instead, like historic and historical, or politic and political.
Right.
And it comes from Latin ICUS plus ALIS. So it's just a mashup of these two things.
Okay.
Etym-Online notes it was probably needed because the forms in IC often took on a noun sense, as in physic. And the sentence that decided me, that made the decision for me regarding which version of the word I was going to use as my word and thus the part of the title for the episode, forms in ICAL tend to be attested earlier in English than their twins in IC.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So it has, you get related entries in Etym-Online. Alphabetical, alphabetic.
Right.
Astronomical, astronomic. Chimerical, chimeric. Basically, any time I see a word that ends in IC, I'm going to change it round so it's an ICAL and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's...
Just to amuse myself, just because I can.
Yeah. The mathematical is one that... Physical now, you wouldn't think of physic as... Because you think of that as... If you think of it at all, you think of it as a noun. That's interesting.
But they sound so odd and so archaic that they would lead someone like Ricky Baker to say, that's not a word.
That's not right. Yeah, you're just making that up.
That can't be correct. To be majestic, to have dignity of appearance. Interestingly, the OED talks about how originally, again, from the written citations that we have, they tended to be about God. So conferring that the greatness and the glory of God onto a person made them your majesty.
Okay.
Hence, that sense of the sovereign being called majesty.
Right. Yeah.
So someone who was not just great and good and dignified, someone who was godlike became your majesty.
Yeah, the deifical connection.
Yeah, which is as old as time.
Yeah.
So
I like that a lot.
There are lots of there's the sense of eternal glory. That's an obsolete sense again from the church. The sovereign power and dignity of the Roman people.
Oh, wow.
Especially considered with reference to offences. So there is a citation from 1591, a translation from Tacitus, that talks about the crime of majesty and treason. So treason, a deed against the ruler, but it was also a deed against majesty. It was something so awful that it would offend the dignity and power of the entire Roman people.
Wow.
Which is quite lovely.
Yeah, that's definitely a next level offence.
It does note regarding the title for a king or a queen that it wasn't until the 17th century that Your Majesty entirely superseded the other customary forms of address. It says that Henry VIII and Queen Elizabeth I, for example, would often be addressed as Your Grace and Your Highness. And eventually we get to Your Majesty in the dedication of the King James Bible.
Okay.
And yeah, it's very much about this kind of space between human and godly, something that you can kind of understand as a human being, and something that is just too big and too great to fit into your brain.
Yeah.
Much like the beautiful triple sails of the Queen's Ferry Crossing, which will always be, regardless of people who tell me it's not in the dictionary, majestical.
Majestical. They are majestical. It is, yeah. That's fantastic. I love that it's first. I mean, first in quotation marks, but I love that. In the same way that I like, it doesn't come up as often here, but when Susie Dent was talking about how math is older than maths.
Yeah, so I love that. It's my favourite.
Like, yeah, it's nice. There's a certain
Americans have been calling it
comeuppance
math for longer
handy.
than we've been calling it maths.
Yeah. Also, Majestical Toast is a great name.
Majestical Toast is a great... Well, Toast Majestical's pretty good too. Majestical. I think Majestical Toast wins out.
It's funny because Majestical, like the AL, it's... I don't know. It does sound like a specifically and intentionally archaic neologism. Like, it sounds like you're trying to make up a new word, but trying to make it up in such a way that it sounds old. So it's handy that it is old, but it's also one that
and in fact, we've made up nothing.
Yeah, but it's also, it is sort of undeniably adjectival. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't, like, elastic can either be the nature of a thing or a thing with that nature, right? Something can be elastic or you can have an elastic. But change that to elastical, and elastical is, quote, not a word, but there's no doubt what you mean. You know, you're definitely not talking about the thing, you are definitely talking about the nature of it. So if you wanted to make it clear that you were talking about the property, sort of the physical material science property of being able to stretch and then to reform back to your original length and composure, you would say elastical, and people would just know what you mean.
You would, as Boyle did in 1660 in his new experiments in the physico-mechanical. You would use the word elastical.
Elastical.
It is indeed in the OED.
That's fantastic. Everything old is new again anyway. That's perfect.
Yeah, everything old is new again and everything new is old.
And everyone should see Hunt for the Wilder People.
Oh, it's so good.
And that's it for another episode of Lexitecture. To get in touch with us about something you heard this episode, you can email us at words@lexitecture.com. You can also follow along and talk to us at Lexitecture on Facebook and Twitter, and at Lexitecture Podcast on Instagram. For back episodes and the occasional blog post, visit us at Lexitecture.com. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.